Well, welcome to another edition of Money Masters. This is Tony Robbins, and I'm real excited today because we brought you the best of the best in the web. These people that have made their fortune starting from scratch. They've done it from the ground up, and you've met so many different personalities, so many different people from, the Frank Kerns to the Evan Pagans, people that have now become dear friends of mine and family. And I'm going to introduce you to another family member today, but he has a really special gift. The gift that I think most people don't think much about. We've talked about, how do you find your market? How do you figure out that product or service? How do you bring it to the marketplace? But the thing that stops the train most often, more than anything else, is the copy. I mean, think about it. You can have the best visuals all day long. Even if you're doing video marketing, you still need a script that allows you to tell your story in a way that grabs people's attention, lets them know who the heck you are, what it is you got to offer them, and gets them to really want it. That process of influence, call it a sales process, call it copywriting, call it whatever you want to call it, is the essence of success or failure in any marketing campaign. And let's face it, what is business? Peter Drucker talked about its two basic things. It's innovation and it's marketing. It's your ability to create something that's valuable, that people want, or that a niche market wants, somebody wants, but that's in your ability to tell that story in a way that's compelling. So I thought for this session, what we really need is bring in the best in the world, the guy that's really taught some of the best in the world, the guys that helped to turn around some of these guys when they're in a tough spot, and that's John Carlton. And John's a hell of a lot more than just a copywriter. He's taught the best of the best. In fact, John, first I want to just thank you for being here.
Tony, it's a pleasure.
Your reputation is you're the most, what's the phrase that they use so much? The most ripped off?
Yeah, the most ripped off and respected writer online. That came from the fact that a lot of my early ads were picked up by a lot of the IM guys when
Yes.
they came on.
Yes.
And they were able to adapt what I had done to their particular market. It was a pretty cool little skill to have. It allowed them to transpose the salesmanship that had already been done for one market and move it over to theirs while they're learning how to do it for themselves. So a lot of my ads found themselves morphed and put into different venues. So.
And a lot of these guys, though, they really acknowledge. I mean, Frank Kern was saying that, but he was at his wit's end. Things that got really complex on StomperNet, which is what he's probably best known for. Right. And he said he reached out to you, and you got his head clear. And right after that, he's able to write the ad that I think the first hit on it was $10 million in a day. It was the biggest in history at that time. It was a collaborative effort, but you played a huge role. John Reese says you're one of the greatest marketers of all time. He's learned so much from you. You don't just come from that school of internet marketing. You really come from what everybody needs to understand, which is how do I directly get a consumer to respond? People call it direct response, but it's really, I'm not just branding myself here, how to get people to respond. So tell me, maybe to start with, how did you help Frank on that first one? Because that's $10 million. I think it eventually became $18 million by the time they were done. But the first 24 hours, $10 million. He says you're the one who turned around. What'd you do? What'd you tell him?
Well, I didn't write the actual stuff. What happened was they had a very Byzantine, convoluted presentation, and it was at the climax of a launch. So they had people frothing at the mouth, trying to, waiting to get into this. So they had this ready audience.
Kind of a product launch setup in those days, right?
A product launch. And it was one of the first ones done, actually. I think it might have been among the first dozen ever done. And what happened was the piece that they showed me that a prospect was going to see, coming in frothing, what do I do? What's going on here? Not a completely cold prospect. It was a very poorly written, full of tangents, hard to read, hard to figure out what the heck they were talking about. So I said, look, you don't need to write a novel here. You don't need to do a lot. Just let me know as a prospect who you are, what you got for me, what it's going to do for me, and what do I need to do now. So move me through those simple
Say those
processes.
four again just for everybody, because I don't care. They're so simple, but we miss the fundamentals. And I talk to business owners all the time, and they go, well, I hired somebody else to do the copy.
Exactly.
And I say to them, how do you know what copy is going to work? Because that's the core of your business. Whether that copy is being on video, or whether that copy is somebody verbally saying, or whether that's something you write on the web. If you don't put the right stuff, it can be a 2,000%, million% difference in return.
That's right.
And most people think, well, I don't want to do the writing. I don't know what the writing is. Even if you're not going to do the writing, you got to know the fundamentals. So just give me those simple four for starters again, because cutting back to that, what do I got to communicate in any sales message?
Okay, let me tell you the genesis before I get to
perfect.
that.
That's even
it is salesmanship in print. That's not my line. That's a line from a guy back in the 20s, I think. I think it was Claude Hopkins that said that. And that cleared it up. By the way, when I first met met J. Abraham, what we had in common was we both devoured the old books on copywriting. These guys, the authors had been dead for 50 years. You know, these books were out of print.
Sure.
And Claude Hopkins was one, and he talked about that, and it really cleared it up for me. And the idea of salesmanship in print means that your ad is a little salesman that goes out either online or in the magazine or in the mail, and one person at a time presents your sales pitch. So if you can sell to anybody, if you have any salesmanship chops at all, you can sell to massive numbers of people. But you need to know how to get it down, first on paper and then onto video or onto a website and things like that. So it's a simple process of salesmanship. And it's the same kind of salesmanship that has been done since the dawn of time.
Because human psychology hasn't really changed. Our values may have changed, but the psychology is the same.
In fact, I like to say the salesmanship is the same now as it was back when the first caveman traded up to a cave with a better view in exchange for a slab of mastodon meat. And there were used chariot salesmen in Rome, by the way. I've heard.
Really?
That's what I've been told, so I have to look into that. But the process is, I have something of value. I have to establish with you that I'm a guy that you can trust, that yes, you do want this and you want it now. So it's very, very basic. So those 4 elements of the ad are, salesmen should recognize this right away, especially if you're going to cold prospects, but even if you're going to prospects who maybe know you, but they're not sure they're going to buy. Let me know who you are. And that's more than just name, rank, and serial number. That may be who you are includes a little bit of your background. I'm the guy who's been helping people for 25 years do X and blah, blah, blah. For thousands of people, they rely on me. I'm considered the grand old master of the thing. Or maybe I'm the new kid on the block that the old guys are afraid of because I'm now selling more than they are.
Right.
Or I'm the guy who understands the web and I'm helping people who don't understand the web how to get online and make sure that they're not missing that great marketplace on the grid.
So it's not only who I am, but it's really who I am that's advantage to you. It's like
and what I bring to the party.
That's
yes.
exactly right. Because where does respect come from? Respect comes that you bring something to the party I don't have, and I need to hear that and believe it's really real.
That's right. You knock on the door. It's kind of cold. It's cold outside, and they open the door. And, we're not sure we're going to let you in or not. Why should I let you in? It's like the old speakeasies. They jam the thing open. Right. So here's who I am, and it doesn't have to be a long, boring. It shouldn't never be boring, but it can be it doesn't have to be a long story. It can just be the essentials, enough to establish yourself, position yourself in the prospect's mind. So here's who I am. Here's what I've got for you. And that is a explanation that's very, very basic. And you have to start directing that to the heart of the prospect. It's not what I have. It's not, I have a book and I want to sell you this book. It's that I have this book. Now this book will blank. And whatever that blank is here's what it's going to do for you. So it's here's who I am, here's what I got for you, here's what it's going to do for you. And that's what we talk about benefits. We talk about this, reading this book. The book is merely a conduit for the information. I could have done a video. I could have come over to your house and spoken to you for 5 hours, or I could have put it in this book. It's the simplest way for me to let you know how your life can change very dramatically, very rapidly in these ways. And depending on what market you are, either you're going to help the person do something better or achieve something he didn't be able to achieve before, or gain entrance to a world, as I've talked about before, that he otherwise would not have entrance for. And then because we're
solve a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that would be the main thing is to solve a problem. And then the main thing is because it's direct response advertising. The reason we call it direct response is because you are asking for a response, an action. So the last thing is here's what you need to do now. Most people, Tony, they can understand the idea that I have to present my stuff in a way that looks attractive to a prospect. They kind of get that, but they fall down on the sales part because I call it selling from their heels. Mm-hmm. And basically, they're like somebody that says, well, here's what I've got, and it'll do all these wonderful things for it, but you probably don't want to do it, and you're out of there. Or the first time you shake your head or you look sideways at me, I'm out of here. Yeah. That is, most people are afraid of selling. They have a bad idea of it. Oh, yes.
Being rejected, I should
yes,
say.
and they just don't
Even
like
when they're
it.
not there. Even when it's copy.
That's exactly right. They carry it over. And I like to talk about, and this is something you would well understand, I like to talk about the inner slumbering salesman. That guy is asleep. If you're married, if you've ever gotten a job that you didn't think you were going to get, if you've ever convinced a friend to go see a movie you wouldn't have otherwise seen, you've woken that little guy up. and put him to work. Most of the time, he goes right back to sleep and he stays down. So the last...
And every kid has got one of those, by the way.
Right? Especially
if you have any kids,
that's right.
Tell them no, it goes right on by. They just keep on going until they get what they want, right?
Exactly. Kids are some of the best salesmen in the world because they know their prospect really, really well. They know the soft spots, the soft targets, as they say in the self-defense world. So the final thing is, again, you establish who you are, position yourself, let me know what you've got, let me know what it's going to do for me in a way that makes sense to me, not you. So that you are talking to within them, to their needs, their hopes, their fears, their problems that they're having. And then finally you say, here's what you need to do now. Because during this process, you establish yourself as an authority. So what you want me to think in my head as a prospect is, you're right, that is a pretty good product. And I probably should get it right now, and I think you're the guy I want to deal with.
But now you got to push me over the edge.
Knock them off the fence, we call it. It's pretty easy to get people up on the fence thinking, that's a pretty good product, and you're a nice guy, and I think maybe someday I'll think about sort of once maybe buying it.
Yes.
You got to knock them off. And that's where direct response comes in with a lot of the things you see where there are limited time available, limited number of products.
Scarcity.
You shouldn't make this up. Yes, the scarcity. You shouldn't make this stuff up, but there are ways to make it, even if you say, and I've done this successfully before, even if you just say, look, if you're like I was, when opportunities like this come along, you're thinking there's another opportunity right behind it, and that's just not true. So really, look into your heart. If you really have been missing opportunities because you don't jump on it, this may be the time that you should jump on it right now. Because maybe this website will still be here tomorrow, but you're not going to remember where it is. So many things are going to happen to you.
Someone else is going to get your attention.
Somebody else is going to get your attention, or you have no idea what's going to happen an hour from now. So right now, while you're here, while you got the time, click on this button and just see what's going on. And of course, there are other things like the guarantees, making sure you reverse all the risk. You're not risking a dime by doing this. You can get your money back. You can, you make this seem like a no-brainer.
Now, one of the things I noticed in studying your work is you said that on this risk reversal, which I'm familiar with, this idea that what stops people from taking action is risk.
Yeah.
So if I can take the risk for you, and if I can make that significant and real, there's a difference. So there's lots of ways of doing that, as you well know. But what I saw was really interesting was on your guarantees. You have this philosophy that you found over 25 years that the longer the guarantee, the less returns. That's
especially in the old world. Online, it's hard to get people to follow that. I think the online, it may be that the jury is still possibly out on that, only because the website's going to be there tomorrow. If you get a letter in the mail, you're not going to get that letter tomorrow.
Yes.
But as far as lengthening out the guarantee, it does make sense. If you stand behind your product, if you know it's really good, go ahead and lengthen it. I've gotten big corporations who used to do 30-day guarantees to do 6 months and then a year. And then the last one I wrote for Rodale, I invented this. I said, look, you guys will give them their money back at any point for this book they bought, right? And they said, yeah, anytime. That's our philosophy. I said, then how about if I say your grandkids can turn this book in and get the money back for it? Wow. They say, yeah, we do that. So I started crafting the guarantee as, long after you're gone, this guarantee doesn't end, and start going into that thing.
Wow.
And what they found, what most businesses find, is that returns do not go up, refunds do not go up. Because you have taken away that idea that if I buy this and I don't like it, I got to get my money back. That's gone. There's no pressure there. So they start to think, well, I've got some time, and it removes all of the risk.
Also produces, I would imagine, a great deal of certainty that you feel that strongly about your product that you're willing to stand behind it. And again, assuming you're a brand or a company that's been around long enough that they trust that you're going to be here later on to make that happen.
There are corporations, Tony, that will do almost an unlimited guarantee,
yes,
but they don't want to say that because they're afraid. I don't know what they're afraid of. I've asked clients before, are you afraid that your customers are evil people looking out to take all your money? No, if you have a product that I as a prospect need, and I don't have it because I don't have access to it, I haven't found anybody I can trust, and you got that product and it's a great product, then shame on you if you don't do everything in your power to make sure I get it in my hands so that I can see it for myself and use it and realize, wow, this is great. That's the product I want, and you're the guy I want to deal with.
The biggest piece, you've walked us through the process at a fundamental level. We'll go deeper, which I think is really helpful for anybody, because anybody out there that owns a business has got to be able to look at copy or look at something that's going to be done for them. Even if they're not going to write it themselves, and say, does this meet the criteria of what's going to move somebody? And so
Right.
you've told me two things on this. One is, even before we got on camera, you said, look, this is just like, going to the bar room and the guy starts to tell you his problem.
Right.
Maybe you share a little bit about that, but maybe first, let me interrupt myself on this one. Right now, the hardest thing in this world, I think, for most people, the most scarce thing in this world is not money. There's many money challenges, lots of people, but there's plenty of money in the world. It's not skill. It's certainly not information. Or we're
Right.
drowning information.
We are.
We're starving for wisdom, But it's really the most scarce resource, I think, is attention. Because, it's coming at you. Someone's always trying to get your attention. It's your email. Your phone is ringing, which we all ignore now. People get their emails. Most people respond to their text. It's happening constantly. There's someone trying to market and sell something all the time. How do you stand out? You are well known for grabbing people's attention, agitating them. Tell me about the process of how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you make sure in that headline on that web page, how do you make sure in that video that something makes that person stop what they're doing and enter your world? And what's your philosophy about how to go about doing that?
Excellent question, and that is the crux of really good advertising. And by the way, I have helped people turn ads around from producing nothing to producing massive results
Yes.
with single word changes in the headline sometimes,
Wow.
or just a small phrase.
Can you give me an example, a general example?
Boy,
you
well,
on the spot.
you are putting me on the spot a bit, but it's something I call power words. Most people write very boringly, and I think we've mentioned this, that especially in America, it's just the love of writing and reading and even communicating. It's just beaten out of us so long. We're not very good at it.
Yeah.
And a good writer is really good at it, and guess what? A good salesman is really good at it. So again, if you can sell, if you're good at selling what you have, you actually have these qualities already.
Yes.
So when we talk about the stuff in the headline, the power words that can change things is to use a word that has a little bit of a punch to it, or a lot of punch to it, kind of like whack you upside the head.
Yes.
So I like words that have visceral meaning to the people out there. I've used the word humiliate. Nobody reads the words humiliate without having some kind of visceral thing go through their body. So when I talk about the Arizona human computer who humiliated Wall Street 21 consecutive years in a row,
Yes.
talking about selling a financial newsletter, that really rings home. It's not that he beat the market, he humiliated these guys.
Right.
You start to get into the story idea. I talk about the skinny kid that accidentally started hitting 400-yard tee shots in golf.
Right.
Now, if you're a golfer, 400-yard tee shots, even the pros don't hit that far. So how does this guy do it? It's a true story. This skinny kid just learned how to do this windmill thing, and he can teach you how to do it too. Wow. Maybe you won't hit 400 yards, but you'll learn how he just started hitting. This guy's a long ball champion. It's a whole separate part of golf.
Right.
So you find that stuff, and what I call it is the hook. And the hook in a headline is something that brings you in, that transcends the dull, boring promise of nothing going on here, move along, that most ads are. It's like, oh, there's an ad, just move right along, and stops the person. Either if you're surfing the web, if you're going through your email and the subject lines, if you're looking at, if you're searching something online and you happen to come across an AdWords or a pay-per-click that has something, you can actually, even if you have just a short little thing to get in there, you can trigger those things in your prospect's head.
And what makes it a power word is that it just produces so much emotion in a person, or agitation. What are these words? Give me some other words and help me to understand which words make that happen, if you would.
And I don't have the Power Words report here, but I have a report that I give away free, by the way, that I went through all of my ads and I started pulling them all out. And some of them are phrases. And again, the best ones are like humiliate, accidentally,
so accidentally would make me curious.
Upon. Yeah.
Okay.
Discovery used to be one, but they are words that you don't see a lot. I use the word murder a lot. I just wrote a blog piece about, the piece was titled, How to Murder Your Business Next Year.
Wow.
So rather than the boring thing would be how to do better next year, in your business. And you start twisting it around, how can I get attention? Because reading and watching video is a passive behavior. And you have to wake people up and bring them out of that passive behavior where there's no retention, there's no involvement, there's no sense that there's any interaction going on, and actually turn that ad or that website or that email or that video into something where there's actually some interaction going on. Now, there can't be, I have been told that people actually talk back to my ads, things like, no way, and then, I can't believe this is true, blah, blah, and they're moving on. You want that because you're bringing them out of that passive state into that active state so that the direct response process can work, where you can say, look, this is the thing you really want. I've shown you this. There's no risk. There's no reason at all why you shouldn't want this or act right now. You agree with me, right? I'm the guy you should be dealing with, right? You can trust me. And if you don't, you get all your money back, all this stuff. You got to pull the trigger, dude. You got to get in here right now.
That's the core.
That's the crux of the whole thing. And of course, just to go deeper for just a second,
sure.
During this process, to keep it active, to keep it interactive, you have to be giving him reasons, little tiny blurbs that he can say to his spouse, who is skeptical that he just bought something, to his neighbor, who always tries to one-up him and would love to prove that he's an idiot, which is what we call buyer's remorse, of course, and his jerk brother-in-law, who just is convinced that your prospect is a moron who can't do anything right. So you arm him with little things like, well, no, I didn't get taken. This is actually a bargain. Do you know that these sell for blah in Japan, and it's the biggest thing over there? And didn't you know that this is an investment? You give people.
You're almost like writing
things.
his victory speech for him.
I haven't used that. I'm going to steal that, Tony. That's great.
Well,
a victory speech. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So afterwards he can declare victory by saying, "Here's why I did this, and it was the right reason to do it, and here's what the championship came from." That type of thing.
Well, people talk about buyer's remorse, and that is kind of like writer's block. It doesn't really exist. All it means is that the guy lost track of why he bought it. And indirect response, you got to get the stuff into their hands as quickly as possible. The web is great because it can be immediate with digital stuff, but we ship our stuff. So we make sure it's shipped by FedEx ground. It happens really quick, so there's still got the buzz going, and then it arrives, and it's this wonderful thing, and it's part of the adventure of the sale, and they're moving along.
Yes.
It's idiotic to make people wait 2 to 6 weeks for their stuff, and it arrives, and they don't know what's going on, and they're thinking, and they've lost the generative excitement that you've taken so much trouble to instill. If it is going to take a while to fulfill on this stuff, make sure you're touching them in other ways. You're sending them emails, you're letting them know what's going on, you're giving them some freebie stuff, you're staying in contact because you have started something that you got to finish. You started a relationship.
Now, you've opened several doors here that I want to grab. I want to get back to your history. No, please. This is so stimulating. I find it incredibly valuable. Tell me, you say there's no writer's block. Since so many people watching will say, oh, this is really great to me, but I'm going to write this anyway. I'm trying to make sure that if you're watching, you're going, okay, Tino, I get it. No, I want to understand how to know what great copy is versus lousy copy. And if I'm going to run in my own business, maybe I need to write my own copy. Maybe I don't have to write it. You and I talked about off camera. Maybe what it is I learn how to give my communication, my pitch, what's going to move somebody, and I just record it, and then I can edit it.
Right.
You and I talked about that off camera. But tell me, you say I want to get to two things, so I'll say them right now. One is, there's no writer's block. Tell me what you mean by that. And then secondly, all this kind of presupposes you know who your customer is.
Yep.
Right? So I want to come back to that if I may, and I still want to get to your history, so we're bouncing around. But just as long as we're here, there's no writer's block. What does that mean for all the people out there who think they're not writers?
Writer's block is a fiction invented by people who are looking for excuses not to write. If you need to write something, it's merely and you think you have writer's block, it is merely a matter of not knowing what to do next. Now, the first step in the 17-step simple writing system that I have, the first step is market research. It's not sitting down and typing. It's not actually making a note at all. You are actually figuring out what you can find out about your market, what kind of competition there is out there, other things. It's not mysterious stuff. It's not voodoo. People are just scared to death of writing, and they're looking for excuses not to write. And the idea of writer's block is a nice, convenient excuse. Right. Very famous writers have had writer's block. I can't remember the writer's name, but back in the 20s, there was a guy who used to sit down at the typewriter, put in a fresh sheet of paper every day for 30 years and not type, and then he'd take, at the end of the day...
he was a famous writer?
he had written a couple of novels.
Oh, early in his life.
Yeah, and then afterwards he just couldn't do it, and he'd just sit there all day, and then he'd take the paper out, wad it up, throw it away, and go back, and he just lost it. He wasn't prepared. He didn't have a story to tell. There's nothing magical about either picking up a pen and having a piece of paper or sitting down and addressing, a Word document. There's nothing magical that goes on there.
Yes.
Writers write. Actually, non-writers write too. What you are doing is at the point when you sit down to write, you should know who you're going after, what you're going to say, you're going to introduce yourself, and you're going to rewrite it. You're going to edit it a little bit. You're not beholden to what you get down there. So just throw some stuff up there and kind of work with it and move it around. You had mentioned the recording thing. I take people who refuse to write, either because I've never really met an illiterate person, but I know that this would work for them. I have known illiterate streetwise salesmen though who know how to do this. If you can record what you've done, if
Like
you,
somebody you've been able to successfully persuade to use your product or purchase your
if
product.
you've ever sold anybody on your service or product, and you know the process, go ahead and record yourself doing it. Record yourself several times. Have them transcribe. Look at them and say, "Oh, it's actually a process you're going through. It may be unconscious. You may not even understand what you're doing. But once you get that down, have it transcribed, looked at it, then just edit it around." And where somebody in person might say, "Well, wait, how much is it?" or something, you can just say a little subhead. How much is it?
Yeah,
A question mark, and then answer it. It's not very expensive at all. It's blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Will it last forever? Or whatever the person you're talking to when they ask a question. And a lot of salesmen like to involve people, so they want questions. So go ahead and incorporate that in what you're doing, and you're going to have your first darn good ad right there.
Because all an ad is, you said at the top, but I want to reiterate because I think it's so simple and clear. All it is a little salesperson you're sending out there to meet somebody, connect with them, convince them that what you have, who you are, is valuable, that what you have is really important to them.
Yes.
It's going to make a difference for them, and it's something they need to take action on now in its essence, really. And you got to shout in the middle of that room so that whatever category of person you're looking for, as you said earlier, bowlers or whatever the case may be, all those people come over and listen to you so they can enter the process. That's what your headlines and hooks are really about.
A basic ad really can be, if you find out that there is no, let's take bowling for example, because for some reason it's in my head, and I haven't bowled in years. But let's say you have a product that can help bowlers bowl better, and it's as simple as that.
Yes.
If you look into the market and you see that there aren't a lot of websites out there to bowlers, or there are no communities online where bowlers can hang out, you may get away with a headline of just, "Attention bowlers, would you like to increase the number of times you break 500 in a series?" That's when you league and you bowl 3 games as a series.
You know a lot about bowling after all, it sounds like.
But you can, well, I grew up in a bowling alley actually. I just haven't bowled in a long time. The thing is, you can be very, very direct. You know, hey,